reports are coming in that Dougie Freedman's more and more increasingly likely to become the head of recruitment. So in today's video, we're going to break down Dougie Freedman, his appointment, how he will align with Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, Omar, Berrada, what INEOS's plan is, and it's getting more and more clear what INEOS's plan is now with this guy potentially coming in and more. So please do hit the like button and of course subscribe down below if you're new. But Dougie Freedman, he works at Crystal Palace on a limited budget with constraints, and INEOS have made it clear very early on that they wanted to focus on sort of domestic talents that are young, and there was no one else better out there finding domestic talents from championship clubs, really young English talents, or even young talents abroad than Dougie Freedman, but particularly the domestic talents. Olise was bought for 9 million, Eze was bought for 17 million, Decore, Guehi were 22 million each, Anderson was 17 million. He spent 88 million pounds on a group of players that is worth about 300 to 350 million pounds, bringing in young domestic talent and developing them into superstars. And that aligns with INEOS's goals. People need to remember what INEOS goals are. INEOS are going to come in and they're going to create a vision for an attacking style of football that they want Manchester United to play. Brailsford, Blanc, Omar, Berrada, Dan Ashworth are going to have this conversation saying this is what we want United to do. We want to play attacking football, we want to play this way, and we're going to go out in the transfer market and buy players that are capable of playing this style of football. If they believe that Ten Hag is capable of coaching that style of football and getting the best out of the players, they will then keep Ten Hag. To do that, they might bring someone new in. De Zerbi, Graham Potter have been most heavily linked, as well as a Sporting Lisbon manager. They also want to have a focus on signing young players. Casemiro, in particular, Sergeant Ratcliffe pointed out to John Murta, saying, look, as good as Casemiro was for you last season and getting top 4, that was a bad signing. You can't be spending 60 to 70 million on someone over 30 on that high wages. That, again, was meant to be a De Jong alternative, but he's nothing like Frankie De Jong. Jim Ratcliffe was very critical of Casemiro signing because he was the complete opposite profile to De Jong, the original midfielder we wanted, but he was over 30, he was so expensive. He was saying this is the signings we want to avoid. INEOS want to have that young focus, a particular focus on British and domestic talents. Technically, Olise can play for England, but I think he's represented France at youth level, but he's not British technically, but he is. But he's a domestic talent. Players that are in the Premier League, not necessarily British. Players that are in the England ranks, and British players seems to be the focus, but they're not going to completely focus. They're going to look at some of the ballers in the Portuguese league and more, but they're going to be focusing mostly on these young domestic talents that can sort of suit the style of play that they want to play, have the right attitude, can be developed into superstars. And that's what Liverpool, City and Arsenal did. I see fans saying, oh, we're linked to Olise, we're linked to Brentford, they're at Palace, they're at Everton, Alice, they're not good enough. And I'm thinking, John Stones was the centre-back that came from Everton. Look how good he is at Manchester City. Robertson came from Hull. The amount of players Liverpool signed for Southampton, Sadio Mane, Van Dijk, even like a lot of Liverpool's key players. I mean, Firmino came from Hoffenheim. Do you know what I mean? A lot of Liverpool's key players, a lot of Manchester City's key players and Arsenal's key players didn't come from big clubs. I believe Ramsdale, he came from Sheffield United. Ben White came from Brighton. Obviously, I know Ramsdale's not really at them now, but Raya came from Brentford. Ben White's been absolutely fantastic as well. A lot of Arsenal's key players came through the youth ranks. They didn't come from big clubs. You've got to remember that. You've got to remember Manchester City's rebuild. Kevin De Bruyne was technically from Wolfsburg. Obviously, he was absolutely phenomenal in the Bundesliga, but it's not about signing a big name from a big club. It's about signing something that can be developed into a talent. Carl Walker, John Stones, Diaz came from the Portuguese league, could be developed into talent. Bernardo Silva had a good season at Monaco, but he was still so young and raw, developed into a talent. Rodri had a good season at Atletico, but was young and raw, developed into a talent. Nico Williams, a bit like Rodri, taken from Spain after 1 or 2 good seasons, were young and raw, and develop him into a top class talent. That's what INEOS want to do, and that's this sort of why Freedman, Ashworth, Wilcox are the dream team in terms of young talent, domestic talents using their expertise. Just to give you more context, why I'm talking about Freedman, it's said that United are going to make approach for him this week and he's the top target. We've got Dan Ashworth, who'll be sporting director, along with Jason Wilcox. You've got obviously Omar Berrada, that's the CEO, and then you're going to have Dougie Freedman potentially being in sort of the recruitment side of things. It was said by Ben Jacobs that Wilcox and Ashworth has essentially done. Dougie Freedman's one to keep an eye on, but that is essentially what Manchester United's plan could be. Continuing on, what is INEOS's plan? Well, their plan is the vision, which we've spoken about, to bring in top people They're going to employ top people who are at the top to best fulfill this vision. So they want to focus on recruiting players that are young, can be developed into superstars and at domestic. Well, Dan Ashworth has expertise in that. Dougie Freedman has expertise in that. Omar Berrada has a decent amount of expertise in that. Jason Wilcox, in terms of young players for the academy, if we want to go even younger, has expertise in that. All of a sudden, they're signing people to work on the board, to work on recruitment that have expertise in the areas that they want to address. There's no more bankers in charge. There's no more accountants in charge, which is important. And they've made it clear, and Ratcliffe's made it clear, his priority is football success over commercial success. Once you've got football success, the commercial success will come along with that. Ratcliffe, I actually believe him when he says that. I was skeptical about Ratcliffe coming in at first, 25%, the Glazers are still here. But INEOS itself makes so much more money than Man United. If Jim Ratcliffe wanted money, he could take that out of INEOS. He doesn't need dividends from United. That's what you've got to remember. Berrada, Ashworth, Wilcox, Freedman, those four from, the Arnold, the Merters, the Dan Fletchers, the Judge, the Woodwards, that's just not like any normal upgrade. That is a massive upgrade. That is like being homeless and winning 20 million in the lottery kind of upgrade. That's the kind of upgrade it is. It's not like having a small house and going to a big house. It's like being homeless and winning the lottery. You've gone from the worst to the best, essentially. It was also said, and I apologise that this came off blurry, but this is an old report that I saw someone post, that we're talking about Dougie Freedman, because I want to go back to him, that Roy Hodgson is keen on Jordan Ayew, but Dougie Freedman wants Alfie Haaland's $5 million rated sum, but he's deemed not physical enough for the Premier League. Dougie Freedman wanted to bring in Haaland before he went to RB Salzburg, when he was only going to be about £3, £4, £5 million. Hodgson went for Ayew, but Dougie Freedman, not just British talent, but he has an eye for talent all around the world. Now, I saw this thing from Rob Blanchett, but I think it described what Dougie Freedman could bring to United. He said, we spoke about Sergeant Ratcliffe and INEOS's interest in Dougie Freedman last November. He said the Crystal Palace executive has built an increasingly revered reputation working with a limited budget to find diamonds in the rough and polishing them into Premier League players. He said Freedman could be viewed as a replacement to concentrating on recruitment under Dan Ashworth and Omar Berrada. Eze, Olise and Guehi were all scouted and recruited by the Palace sporting director, all worth a lot more than they are now. Very good. They're probably Palace's 3 best players. Freedman fits the profile Sir Dave Brailsford wants to aid and root the branch rebuild of Manchester United squad. He's smart and an efficient operator at 49 with his best years to come. Sir Alex Ferguson is also a fan of his fellow countrymen. That's no secret to anyone in the game. Sir Alex Ferguson and Sergeant Ratcliffe continue to speak about who joins the club above the coaching department. Interesting point there. And with Paul Mitchell turning down Manchester United, Freedman is an undeniable candidate. So that just gives you a little bit of info on Dougie Freedman. And what should we expect recruitment-wise from United? Not just from Freedman, but the team he'll be working with. I think particularly with Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth, we'll be signing a few unknown names between the ages of 15 to 20 from England and maybe even South America, coming in maybe to the academy, coming in very, very young, a bit like Arsenal did with maybe the likes of Martinelli, a bit like Manchester City are doing now. That's what Manchester City have been doing. And then a lot of those players might not be good enough for City, but they still make profit on them and sell them elsewhere abroad because they're good players and they send them out on loan. I think that's something long-term we'll look to recreate. Branthwaite and Olise are very much names I think United would seriously like, particularly with Dougie Freedman coming in, Olise being a Man United fan and would turn down other clubs for Man United. INEOS reportedly like Olise, and that's been approved. The scouts at United like Olise. We've looked at him for a while. If Dougie Freedman comes in, that for me as Olise all over it. I also think Branthwaite will be one that seriously ticks a lot of boxes, like John Stones, Everton centre-back. And then the players like Todibo, Hjulman, Antonio Silva, there's other types of players being watched abroad as well. We're going to be looking at those players aged 20 to 25 that can be developed, moulded into superstars that tick the attitude box, have the technical ability, have the athleticism, have everything to play the way we want that the manager likes, as well as focusing on those domestic talents, as well as focusing on some raw unknown talents that could, eventually might take 2 or 3 years to be developed into top signings. But interestingly, everyone complains about 10 hours recruitment, 85 million on Anthony, 60 million on Mount. Omar Berrada is very clear about sticking to budget in each position identified for Manchester City. If we had 50 million put away for a right winger and Anthony is 85 million, he says no to 10 hours, we've got to get a winger for 50 million or we can't get that centre back you want. For an example, that's what Omar Berrada would do. They would go down there, they'd have 5 positions to address, and let's say there was a 200 million budget, there was 5 positions to address. One they might say is 20 million max, one they might say is 30 million max, one they might say 70 million max, one they might say is 50 million max, another one they might say is 40 million max. And if you go over the max, he says no. He's saying we've got to get all 5 areas identified and they've got to be within budget. Omar Berrada is very good at that. Teams start putting Man United tax on players. Now we only want our centre back to be no more than 50 million. We're not going to pay 60 million for this guy. We go find another centre back. That's what Omar Berrada does. So not only is it the type of players we'll be bringing in, but Omar Berrada will make sure we're not overpaying, we're sticking in budget. And one thing that Dan Ashworth will do, one thing that Manchester United will be doing now is character references. Jadon Sancho, great player, but character questionable. A few things that popped up about his time at Dortmund, time at Manchester City, time at England. Ashworth will be doing character checks to make sure that these players are hardworking so we can reset the culture of United. So today's video is talking about Dougie Freedman potentially coming into United, a little bit about him, what he'll offer. If Dougie Freedman to United is confirmed, we'll go into even more of a detailed deep dive all about him. But I do think we look to be heading the right way. I do think the people that reportedly coming in is going to bring us in the right direction because we finally got a vision, finally got an identity. It's very obvious the way we want to go, and we're getting the people in to work higher up at the club to do that, and that's exciting. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a long-term project. There's not going to be success overnight, but I do think if United are on the right track and we're run properly, eventually we'll get back to where we need to be. Thank you for watching. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.